All right, so I'm here again with my friend Nate Richie, who's been raw for 9 years. And there's a subject that I think is very important to talk about because people come into problems with it, and that's dietary fat. So the recommendations are usually for a low-fat diet, 10% of total calories or less from fat, because as Dr. Doug Graham says, when you eat more than 10% of your total calories from fat over a period of time, your ability to uptake, transport, and deliver oxygen and glucose goes down, which means your athletic performance, your vitality, just kind of go downward in some respect. But then there's also a group of people that are recommending a really low-fat diet, which is like a 95-5. And for some reason, when a lot of people start a low-fat, raw vegan diet, they go 95-5, and that's probably because they've been eating a lot of fat before, but they seem to think it's the best way to eat and that they should keep on doing it. So I want to talk to you about your experiences with eating fat, and maybe when you started, how much fat you were eating, and kind of what were your experiences with fat as you went on in a raw vegan lifestyle?
I remember when I started and I would eat fat, anytime I would do it, I would have really bad digestion, and it would really constipate me.
So are you talking about like avocados and
yeah, and nuts, yeah,
and
yeah,
nuts,
and
okay.
anything overt fats.
And these were super fresh things too, like right from the farmer's market.
Oh yeah, or like good food combining, and everything seemed like it was okay. I think it took my digestive system a while to be able to digest fat, because then after a while that disappeared and I was able to eat them. I went periods where I would eat some fats and I would buy a bunch, and I remember like having a bunch of hemp seeds, for instance, and then being like, oh, this doesn't make me feel good, and then I threw all my hemp seeds away, and I was like, I'm not eating any fats, and I would go for several months with no fats. Then after a while, I just sort of like struck a balance, though. So I do consume them pretty much every day now in a small quantity, but not very much.
Mm-hmm. So do you ever reach a period where you felt fat deficient, or that your health was declining in some way because you were eating closer to the 95-5 ratio?
Probably so. I don't know if it was from, I don't know if I was fat deficient, but there's been times where I've had like really dry skin. I went to start taking oils at one time because I thought I was really deficient. I know there's been times where I've had cravings for something heavier, and I just haven't felt. I felt too spacey and too light, and then having more fats has like helped that. But it's definitely not like where you say like, oh, I'm going to eat a certain amount of fats, and it's like this is the way to do it. It seems that it kind of varies, and you have to listen to your body. And there's different times when you need more fat, and other times when it's like if it's hot outside in the summer and like watermelon tastes really good, it doesn't make very much sense to say, well, I need to get my tablespoon of chia or whatever.
Although watermelon is a little bit higher in fat.
That's true.
Yeah, like 7%. Yeah. So this is an interesting topic because I've recently talked to Doug Graham about this a little bit, and he says some days he does eat 95-5, but he doesn't think that that's the best way to eat. He thinks the best way to eat is more fat than that on average. And so like every raw foodist I know eats above 95-5. Every single one, every single long-term raw foodist, and they get closer to 10%. So what kind of percentage do you think you're eating right now?
Probably in the upper like 7-8%, something like that. Because I do consume fats like on most days. I'd say just a little bit at nighttime.
And what kinds of fat do you think work best? Because I know you're a person. It's very unusual that even if you have fresh, homegrown Hass avocados from a love tree, you just don't dig them for some reason.
I don't really like avocado very much, except for Reed avocado. But most avocado I don't really.
If you haven't had Reed avocado, you have to have it. It's the king of avocados. It's like I used to really like lox and cream cheese. It's just kind of smoky and.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so I don't know. I when I have a Reed avocado, I think, okay, here's my smoky, flavorful, salty, amazing thing. So you've had trouble with avocados. So then you also tried oil at one point. You tried Udo's oil.
Yeah, I hadn't had oil for a really long time, and decided to try it. Just thought this might be a way to sort of take my fat as a supplement rather than as a food, and it was very and this is very very like coated everything on my like if I touch it on my hands, it would coat everything, and then over time I realized that it was sort of like giving me a very like dull like achiness like in my body, but it's maybe a certain oil that was in that blend that I didn't really like. So I tried some other oils, like flax oil and some different ones, just thinking that maybe oil was the best thing to do, and then I decided that wasn't what I wanted to do, and so I started taking just some nuts and seeds, mostly what I do, a little bit here and there.
Yeah, right on. So a little hemp and chia, equal parts.
That's what I do most often, yeah. Because I find that different fat sources have different levels of like saturation, and the ones that are more saturated, they just make me feel kind of heavy in my chest, and I don't really like that very much at all. So I like the ones, there's certain ones that I find that works better for me, so.
So you said there's times when you feel like you need more fat and less fat. Can you talk about like what are some times that you might eat more fat? Are you feeling a certain way, or? I
feel really spacey, and just fruit is not satiating me. It's like I could eat as much. I could just eat and eat fruit, and I just don't feel satiated. And I'm drawn towards like heavier things, and I'm thinking about like what can I eat that's heavier. And so that's the times when fat, like a little bit more fat sources in my salad, just helps me feel balanced.
Yeah, awesome. I just want to let the viewer know. So one thing that's really been interesting to me is to hear Don Bennett speak about what tropical fruits we're supposed to be eating, and that a really good piece of tropical fruit is higher in fat than the standard Cavendish banana that we get. Mm-hmm. So that might be a really good reason to supplement with hemp and chia seed. Equal parts gives you equal ratio of omega-3s and 6s. And I started doing that too, like every banana smoothie, I swear to God, it has to have hemp or chia, or it's just not satisfying. Like I can eat so many carbs. And I was talking to Ted Carr about this at Woodstock, like he can eat a 30 banana smoothie some days and still not feel satiated. So I think fat's definitely an important part. And I think you can run fat deficiencies if you're eating 95.5. Like Freely and Harley are recommending 95.5 on a Raw to 4 program. And I know that once you heat your food, you're messing around with the fat. And I think it's unusable, is what Dr. Doug Graham said. And if you're eating sweet potatoes for dinner, and I don't know, I haven't done the math, but I think you can be deficient in fat if you're eating that way for a really long period of time. What do you think?
Yeah, it might be true. Probably could. It just depends on the way that you feel. I think in the beginning, if you're coming from trying to lose weight or a different program, then it's probably not as big of a deal. But over like a really long period of time, maybe you would miss some. When you limit your food to smaller amounts of food, it's harder to get all the different variations of like fatty acids and stuff. So maybe you would kind of run into an issue then. Yeah. And another good example is a plant-based athlete in Hawaii. He started out adding avocados and flaxseed back in, so he's actually eating 80-10-10. So, people think that 80-10-10 is 95.5, and 80-10-10 is 80-10-10. Eat 8 to 9% of calories and fat, or whatever feels good. Maybe vary it. Maybe eat 95.5 some days. But I just really wanted to make this video because fat can be so good. Like I don't really like the effects of like marijuana, for example. But some days I just love to eat a couple really good salty avocados and then just take a nap. It's like one of the most satisfying feelings ever. And when it was Reed avocado season, I get like 8 avocados and I eat half one a day or more. I think part of it though is you do have to listen to the point where you're at in your health, because you might be at a point where your body doesn't want the extra digestive load of fats, and if it doesn't feel good to you, then you should just stay away from it for a while. But you don't want to get rigid on a program and be like, I'm only going to do this, like, because there are certain times when the fat might help you, but there are certain times when it's not good for you.
Yeah, awesome. All right, thanks a lot, Nate.
Okay, thanks.